You can feel it, right? Something is quietly shifting with this team, and even the moves that don't scream headlines might end up making a bigger impact than anyone expects. When you look a little closer, there's a clear intention behind what's happening. Small adjustments that could completely change how this team performs in key moments. And if this all comes together the right way, we might be looking at a version of this team that's more complete than people realize. If you're excited about everything happening with this team, go ahead and drop a like right now, and let me know your take in the comments, because I want to hear if you think these moves are actually putting us closer to a championship or not. Something just changed inside the Minnesota Vikings building, and if you weren't paying close attention, you might miss how strategic this move really is, because on the surface it looks simple, but underneath, it could quietly reshape one of the most overlooked phases of this team heading into the season. We're talking about a position that often only gets noticed when something goes wrong, yet can completely flip games in a matter of seconds. And now, the Vikings have made their decision. According to the report, Minnesota has agreed to terms with veteran punter Johnny Hekker on a one-year deal. And look, this isn't just any signing. This is a move loaded with experience, chemistry, and, most importantly, intent. Because when you bring in Johnny Hekker, you're not just filling a roster spot. You're bringing in a player who, over the last 15 years, has built a reputation as one of the most impactful punters in the entire NFL. A guy who, in his prime with the Los Angeles Rams, could completely flip field position with a single kick. And that matters more than people think. Let's not forget, the Vikings had a real need here. Ryan Wright is gone, heading to the New Orleans Saints in free agency, leaving a gap not just in punting, but also in holding duties. And that's where this move gets even more interesting, because Hekker doesn't just punt, he does everything. We're talking about a player who, if there were an all-pro designation strictly for holders, would have likely earned it. That's how reliable he's been. And when you already have elite specialists like long snapper Andrew DePaula and all-pro kicker Will Reichard, adding someone like Hekker completes a trio that could easily become one of the best special teams units in the entire league. But here's where things start to get even more intriguing. Johnny Hekker can throw the football. Yes, you heard that right. Over his career, he's attempted 26 passes, completing 57.7% of them, with a touchdown and an interception. And these aren't just gimmicks. He's shown the ability to hit real routes, 15-yard outs, comeback patterns, executed with precision. So now you start thinking, what could special teams coordinator Matt Daniels cook up this season? Fake punts suddenly become a real weapon. Defensive coordinators now have to stay honest. And in tight games, that kind of unpredictability can be the difference between winning and losing. And speaking of Matt Daniels, there's another layer here that can't be ignored. These two go way back. They were teammates with the Rams in 2012 and 2013. That familiarity matters. That trust matters. It means Hekker isn't walking into a completely new environment. He's stepping into a system where he already has relationships, already understands expectations, and already fits culturally. And it doesn't stop there. There's also a connection with head coach Kevin O'Connell from their time together in Los Angeles during that Super Bowl run. So when you zoom out, this isn't just a signing, it's a calculated move built on familiarity, trust, and proven success. Now, let's be real for a second. Is Hekker still the same player he was in his absolute prime? No. His recent seasons, including time with the Tennessee Titans, haven't quite matched that peak level. But here's the key. Even a slightly declined version of Johnny Hekker is still a high-level punter in this league. And more importantly, he solves multiple problems at once. He fills the punter void. He stabilizes the holder position. He adds veteran leadership. And he brings hidden upside with trick play potential. That's efficiency. That's smart roster building. And just like that, one of the Vikings' sneakiest needs heading into the offseason is gone. But here's where I want to hear from you. Because this move might not grab headlines like a big free agent signing, but it could have a bigger impact than people expect. Do you see Johnny Hekker as a real upgrade over Ryan Wright? And how much do you think special teams will matter for the Vikings this season? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. And now here's where things start to heat up even more. Because while the Johnny Hekker move brings stability, this next situation could directly impact the protection of the Vikings' offense, and it's still completely up in the air. The Minnesota Vikings have officially signed Buffalo Bills restricted free agent Ryan Van DeMark to an offer sheet. And if you're not familiar with how this works, pay close attention, because this is where strategy meets risk. Buffalo now has 5 days to decide. They can either match the contract and keep Van DeMark, or let him walk straight into Minnesota. And if that happens, the Vikings may have just quietly secured one of the most important depth pieces on their entire roster. Because let's call it what it is. The offensive line depth has been a concern. Van DeMark isn't just some random name. He's a legit swing tackle, a player who can step in when needed and not completely derail your offense. And last season, he proved it. He played 312 snaps for Buffalo and posted a 74.4 overall PFF grade, ranking 25th among all offensive tackles in the NFL. That's not average. That's solid, reliable production. And it gets even better when you look at his run blocking, a 74.9 grade, 22nd in the league. This is a 6'7", 307-pound lineman who can move people. That's the kind of depth contender teams need. Because here's the reality. You already have your bookend tackles in Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill. That part is solid. But both guys have dealt with injuries over the past couple of seasons. And when one of them goes down, everything changes. We've seen it before. The protection breaks down. The offense becomes limited. The playbook shrinks. That's why a high-end swing tackle isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. And Van DeMark fits that role perfectly. But here's the problem. Buffalo knows that too. They're trying to make a Super Bowl push with Josh Allen. They've had their own issues with offensive line injuries. And letting a reliable backup like Van DeMark walk? That's a risky move for them. Which is why, if we're being honest here, the expectation is that the Bills will match the offer. That's the most likely outcome, but if they don't, this could end up being one of the sneakiest steals of the entire offseason for Minnesota. Now, let's zoom out for a second, because this conversation naturally leads into a bigger question the Vikings front office is clearly thinking about. What happens if they don't land him? Do you go into the draft and address this? Because right now, the offensive line picture is starting to take shape, but it's not complete. At guard, you're set with Will Freeze, who just got paid $88 million, and Donovan Jackson, a first-round investment. At tackle, Darrisaw and O'Neill are your anchors. But behind them? That's where the uncertainty kicks in. We saw last year with Justin SKOL. It didn't work out. So now the Vikings are at a crossroads. Do they trust the depth? Do they wait on Van DeMark? Or do they attack this in the draft? And speaking of O'Neill, that brings us to another major development that could reshape the financial future of this roster. Because the Vikings aren't just thinking about adding players, they're thinking about keeping their core intact. There are internal discussions about extending Brian O'Neill and wide receiver Jordan Addison. And starting with O'Neill, this feels like a no-brainer. He's been one of the most consistent pieces on that offensive line. Last season, he ranked as the 9th best run-blocking tackle and finished with an overall grade of 81.6, which placed him 13th in the league. That's high-level production. But here's the key part. Extending him could free up $14.16 million in cap space this year. So not only are you keeping a top-tier player, you're creating flexibility to improve the rest of the roster. That's smart business. And then there's Jordan Addison. This one is way more complicated. Because talent-wise, there's no question. As a rookie, he had 10 touchdowns and nearly 1,000 yards. Even dealing with missed games and inconsistent quarterback play, he still produced. He's dynamic, explosive, and arguably one of the most underrated receivers in the league. But there are concerns. Off-field issues have followed him over the past couple of years, including a recent arrest and prior disciplinary situations. And that directly impacts his value. Because if everything was clean, we're probably talking about a $30 million per year receiver. But with those concerns, there's a potential window here. A projected deal around 4 years, $100 million, with $70 million guaranteed, about $25 million per year, could be on the table. And if the Vikings believe he's part of their long-term future, they might want to act fast. Because here's the risk. If Addison goes out next season and puts up 100-plus yards alongside Justin Jefferson, that price skyrockets. We're talking $28 to $30 million per year. And suddenly, you're paying 2 receivers massive money, which makes building the rest of the roster much harder. So this is a timing decision. Do you bet on the player now and lock in a discount? Or do you wait and risk paying premium later? That's where the Vikings front office has to get this exactly right. Because these decisions, Hecker, Vandemark, O'Neal, Addison, they may not feel flashy individually, but together, they are shaping the identity, depth, and financial future of this team. And that's how contenders are built. Now I want to hear from you, because this is where the real debate begins. Would you extend Jordan Addison right now at $25 million per year, even with the off-field concerns? And if the Vikings miss out on Vandemark, do you trust the draft to fix the offensive line depth? Drop your takes below. And if you want more inside breakdowns like this every single week, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Because we're just getting started with everything happening around the Minnesota Vikings.